And wondering if anyone wanted to feedback on how your discussions were. We talked about youth work and where youth work comes into all of this, and we talked about the health issues in the community course, and could we adapt that for young people so that, because some of the activities in that, especially around inequality, are really quite, the activities are quite good, so we maybe need to look at the resources that we have in the packs that we have to highlight the rights. Yeah, that's really interesting. And definitely if there's anything we can do to support any kind of resource development or anything, just keep in touch after this. Diane, and you come.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, there's interesting discussion in our group, and yeah, similarly there was discussion around the work that some of us are involved in through our youth work and our outreach youth work as well. But also some of the other points that were raised were about our roles and you know, us as individuals, as practitioners, being as inclusive and fair, and being aware of the language that we're using as well. So there was something about it on a sort of like our own individual level, but also then on if we are managing other staff as well, making sure that there's, you know, training or upskilling or workforce development or whatever you want to call it, so that other sort of staff and volunteers that are working with are fully aware as well of children's rights and what we're kind of what we're doing. So also that sort of, and also sort of with partners, making sure that there's an awareness across all sorts of services and different partners that we're working with. So that was just some of the points that came out of the discussions from our group. There was probably other things as well, but that was some of them.
That's such a helpful summary, thank you. And I think we've thought for a while about some kind of train the trainer type approach to children's rights, because I think there is, it touches across so many areas of work and avenues, and like you're saying, with volunteers as well. So yeah, really interesting there. And Pamela and Vanda, I see you got your joint hand up there. You come.
It was just to pick up on Katie's point. There is a health issues in the community for young people, Katie. So just to let you know that.
Brilliant. Any ideas where I can get that, Pamela?
I might have it on my laptop somewhere from years ago. I'm a hoarder, so I will have a look. But there is definitely a version.
Brilliant. That's the types of collaboration that we need. It's in your laptop somewhere. Brilliant. Una, and you come.
Just to say that Jackie had shared a resource that they'd been talking about in their room. Jackie, I don't know if you just want to say a little bit about that.
Sorry, couldn't find the right button to unmute me there. I was just, it was a very quick chat where I had sort of within my role, because I'm coming from more of a healthcare setting, and Healthcare Improvement Scotland. So it's all about working with healthcare partners across the whole of Scotland to make improvements to services. But a lot of that is about our work and our engagement with children and young people, which is why I'm along today. And I was just giving an example of our work with, and I'm sure it wasn't my team, but I've just been sort of on the sideline doing some easy read work with them to make the publications more easy read. And I know they've worked intensively with children and young people to make a children's version. And a lot of that, I think that there's, you'll see at the bottom of the link, there's the standards in young people, and it's talking about their rights, and they came up with it and all the rest of it. But it's sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, it's quite confusing, but the Bairnhouse Standards is working with the Care Inspectorate as part of our directorate about holistic support for victims of witness of abuse, but also the criminal side of it, on if there's underage people in the justice systems and working through their rights and everything. So it's about us being aware of that from the children's point of view, but also as an organisation and the partners we work with, and making sure that they understand it. So that was what I was discussing, and so I just shared that link because it was quite a complicated discussion to have in 2 minutes.
Thanks so much, Jackie. That's really interesting. I've read a wee bit before about the Bairnshouse model, and yeah, so I'll be keen to read that. So thanks so much for sharing. We'll just come on to our final wee section of the session today. I know we've crammed a lot into 90 minutes, so just touching on how we start to embed the UNCRC in practice. And I would say if you're keen in discussing this more, we've been working with YouthLink to develop a rights-based practice session. So we've called it Level 2 Rights-Based Practice, going into a wee bit more of the nitty-gritty around children's rights and CLD. So again, keep an eye out for that in the new year. Oh, Jackie, you're not seeing the presentation. Okay. Let's see. Can anyone see it now? Is it there now?
It's all grey just now.
Oh, it's all grey. Oh, okay.
Oh, I can see it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Diane, would you like to take over?
I can't see anything now.
Okay, let
Just
me
bear
try
with
that
us.
again.
Bear with us.
I do think even
Oh, you can see it now.
Okay, perfect. Is this us?
It's fine for me. Is it okay for you, Jackie?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Great.
It was grey before as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I think every day it does just throw you some different problem that you've not encountered before, and every time I think I've got it just does something different to just test it out. So yeah, we'll have sessions with YouthLink in the new year. So like that, we've ran the pilot twice around the rights-based approach. So this is just touching on some of the things, but we do have another 90-minute session that goes into more detail. So we'll make sure to share information on that as soon as we have new dates for that as well. So when we're thinking about what a rights-based approach is, we quite often refer to this definition from Together. So I mentioned Together earlier on, and they publish a State of Children's Rights report every year. This is a quote from 2017, but they've got them all the way up to 2023 on their website. So they can be a great read if you're interested in reading a bit more about kind of where we're at in Scotland around children's rights. And they define a children's rights-based approach as being a principled and practical framework for working with children and young people that's grounded in the UNCRC and other international rights conventions. And it's about placing the UNCRC at the heart of planning and service delivery and integrating children and young people's rights into every aspect of decision-making, policy and practice. So, moving on. We have here a children's rights-based approach that is from UNICEF, and they have 7 principles that they define as part of a framework for a children's rights-based approach. Oh, Emma, you don't think the slides are moving? It is just throwing us curveballs today, isn't it? Can anyone else see the children's rights-based approach framework?
I can see it, and
I can see it.
And just to say, Emma, you might be able to move the slides yourself if it's showing you an arrow at the bottom of the slides, if that helps.
Sometimes it says something like match presenters slides or something. If you can click that. Oh, Emma, you can't move them. Don't worry. Oh, I know, but I feel bad if we're all on a different different slide. I'm not sure what to do about that, but maybe shall I stop and share again? See if that works.
If you want to do that, and if maybe Jackie and Emma, perhaps if it doesn't work for them, if they go out and come back in again. But then I think we'll need to keep moving so we get through the rest. A shame. I can see that okay. Yeah. Oh, Emma can see it, but is it moving?
Are we there? at the child's rights-based approach from UNICEF? Perfect.
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, fab. So yeah, this is a helpful kind of framework that you can link to. The 7 key kind of principles that they identify are around dignity, participation, life survival and development, non-discrimination, transparency and accountability, the best interests of the child, and interdependence and indivisibility. Can't say that either, indivisibility. So when we think about the kind of general principles that we talked about earlier, those 4 key articles that underpin. Oh, sorry, now I've got an echo. It is just gremlins today, isn't it? Una, and you come.
So Tessa can't see the slides and they won't move for me. Can either I'm on slide 1 again. You're on mute.
Has it moved now? No.
Not for me, but
Mine
Oh
has.
dear, oh
Can-
dear.
oh, what a shame.
Let's see what we can do. Sorry, you'll be glad you didn't come along to a digital skills session, which is delivered by our colleague Jamie.
Well, Emma very generously is saying she thinks it's a Teams issue rather than an us issue because people are getting kicked out and back in again.
That is very generous, and we aren't. My IT skills aren't normally this poor, so I do appreciate that moral support there.
Right. I can see that now on the child's rights-based approach. Can everyone else?
Okay, great. Okay, so it's just me now that can't see anyone else, but that's fine. We can deal with that. So yeah, the child's rights-based approach talks about doing things with dignity, making sure it's a non-discriminatory approach, which I know some of you touched on in your breakout rooms there around the kind of youth work approach, and doing things with the best interests of the child and young person at the heart. So when we think about this framework and then quite quickly move over to look at the CLD competencies and values, there's lots of connections in what we do as a CLD practitioner. So when we think about ourselves as that kind of value base and the ethics that we work to around inclusion, empowerment, non-discrimination, that kind of promotion of lifelong learning and needs-led learning, and very much led by what a learner wants to do rather than the kind of top-down approach that we sometimes see in terms of learning. So lots of what we do really fits with a child's rights-based approach. And sometimes it's about unpicking where those connections are, because they're not always obvious to us in the way that we work, but there's huge connections with that framework from UNICEF and also other definitions of what a rights-based approach are. They really tie in with what we do in CLD, that kind of collaborative work in empowerment, a huge thing that we see that comes often features in like Scottish Government policy and things as well. And I think in CLD, when we think about empowerment in communities, the understanding of what empowerment is can be different to us in CLD. It has a lot of meaning, that word, and really fits with a rights-based approach. So that is a very much a whistle-stop tour of the UNCRC. And what we wanted to do now was pause for some discussion and think about where your roles yourself, you're here from different areas today and different remits. And it'd be great to hear where you feel your role is in respecting, protecting and fulfilling the UNCRC for all children and young people. I'm just going to minimize this so I can see people now, if that's okay. And just have a wee minute to think about where our role is, and if you see connections with work that you do. You might already be delivering things around children's rights. It might be something that you're thinking you want to embed more within your work. We met with the CLD team a while ago who were talking about using it in their kind of session plans and linking to different articles and some people who work in school were thinking about CMIS notes, like when they're taking notes around something that's happened with a child or young person, or a piece of work, really linking it into particular articles and just kind of bringing that literacy and awareness and movement around children's rights to the fore as much as possible. So yeah, we've got space for a wee bit of discussion. You might be thinking around like, what's next? Is there something you would take away from today, or things you would like to learn more about? It's really just some time for some thoughts, I suppose. And yeah, I'm trying to get better at holding the silence, but you can tell I just fill it with talking. Diane, and you come.
Yeah, I suppose, well, I suppose there's lots really, but I was just sort of thinking, Pamela, as well, that we've delivered children's right to play training. We've delivered that probably pre-COVID as well. So we've been doing that for a while, and that's really sort of aimed at mostly sort of like practitioners that are working with children. So it's a lot of like after school club staff. And I think Pamela and I, we're probably going to deliver it again. We kind of do it annually. I think we'll probably look at doing that next year as well. So that's something that we've done for a while, and I think it kind of fits well with this whole agenda. But it is very much, it does talk about the articles, and we do talk about indivisibility, which I can never really see all that well, and you know, part of those principles as well. So that's something that we've done for a while. But I think there's maybe sort of more that we could do to sort of look at embedding this more within our service as well, looking at the workforce development side of things and the training for just making sure that all the sort of staff within our service and probably partners that it's more kind of across the board.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you. And I think it comes back to that point at the start about time and having time to have these conversations and to think about rights in your own setting, and we'll try to support as much as we can in terms of that offer of professional learning. And like I say, I'll circulate the level 2 rights-based practice dates for YouthLink in the new year as well. So I'd absolutely welcome as many people along to that as would like to come to.
I suppose from my point of view, I was just thinking about sort of in our area partnership work. So we're updating our area plans at the moment. I know we had Carrie Ann in our area along to talk about the promise, but obviously children's rights and their voice into that. But brought up a good point, and that's about training for parents, so that parents also understand rights. And I think that's something, I don't know where that lies. Should it sit with the school? Should it sit with us as a CLD service? But I think that's a really important thing, because Katie had also brought up that there's some children who are homeschooled. So even more important that parents are aware of UNCRC. But I think certainly in our Children Youth Network, it's something we maybe need to be upskilling people who come along to that and children's rights. So yeah, a lot of things to go away and think about, really.
Yeah, absolutely, Emma. I think your point about parents is so important, and I'm not sure where that falls either. We have in a nice team in Education Scotland, we have 2 colleagues, Beverly and Susan, who work with families and communities, but they are 2 people for the whole of Scotland. So again, it's very difficult in their capacity. So I know they've met with kind of the national parent forums and things like that to think about where child's rights fits in with their kind of remits as well. But yeah, I think it's a really important one. The Scottish Government published a leaflet that's for parents. I'll find a link to that. Knowing your rights for parents. So yeah, it's definitely, totally agree with you, I kind of need there as well. Tessa, I'm just catching up on your point there. For youth workers, you managed to do the session, use it to add information to your programmes. Brilliant, looking forward to doing the YouthLink sessions and similar sessions at your youth work networking meetings. Yeah, and we'll share our email addresses and things afterwards, so please just get in touch if there's anything we can support with in terms of delivering things or sharing materials if you want to deliver it yourself. That kind of thing too is totally fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think certainly what I'm noticing as well, we're doing youth clubs and then going into the schools and taking like a youth worker approach, working with groups, that some of the girls they feel that the school's already got an impression of them and sort of, you know, so I'm sort of like their voice. So they've either come up with the impression of them from primary school or that first year at high school when they were all unsettled, especially coming back after COVID, that they weren't attending classes. So now they're finding it really difficult to get onto the good side of the teachers and ask for help. And so it's been that voice for them now, and going to guidance and going to the teachers and trying to rebuild that relationship. That's, you know, they're not scared. They're just, I don't know, it's embarrassment, but they feel that they can't talk to a teacher and say, this is how I feel. And it's working, you know, it is getting there, and the teachers are now seeing a different side of them. So certainly, and certainly it was mentioned yesterday when I was in a school that one of the guidance teachers, you know, they're saying, you know, we're now re-looking at how we're assessing these children that aren't going into class. And I think what we need to be looking at is the children's rights. And I'm so glad that you've actually now come out and said that, because you're the first person that's come out and you actually went, how do we look at this in the bigger picture? And we've been constantly trying to say to them for, you know, for over a year now about this, that we need to, you know, look at their education and their right to have an education, instead of just dismissing them and say, well, you're expelled, like what you were saying earlier, they're expelled from school.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so nice to hear that like positive story, and it does take time. I totally know of been there in schools, and you feel sometimes you're bashing your head off the guidance teacher's door for quite some time. And I think what children's rights and the kind of UNCRC moving into incorporating into law, it does give us that kind of vehicle or tool, or it gives us something to be able to say, well, hang on a minute, just like you're saying, they've got a right to an education, a right to an identity, a voice, you know, all these things that sometimes can get a bit lost. So yeah, absolutely, really great point. Thank you for sharing. And that brings us to the last 2 minutes, which we would like to do for the evaluation, so that you don't have to go away and fill it out in your own 2 minutes time. So I'll hopefully share the QR code, and we'd really appreciate any thoughts, feedback for future sessions. I'm hoping that, is that on the screen?
Yep, it is.
I can see that, and I've put the link in the chat, so
Brilliant.
hopefully that's working as well.
Last one.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody's managing to get into that okay. It's a standard evaluation form for all of the winter learning festivals sessions. Education Scotland have their own week in January as well as part of Winter Learning Festival. So we're going to be thinking about some kind of equalities based sessions for that too. Hopefully with one of our colleagues who's in the inspectorate team, they're going to be doing a wee bit of input around some of the quality indicators around equalities and how that impacts on our work. So please keep an eye out for those sessions too. I'll stop sharing this QR code so that I can see people
So
again.
Pamela, you're saying you're not
managed it now. Sorry, I think
Great.
it is IT problem, so apologies.
Okay.
It's on a very go slow.
And Jackie's heading off. So just while people are filling that in, just to say, if you've got any, Julie and I will stay on for a few minutes. So if there's any other burning questions, please pop them in the chat. And if we can't answer them now, we'll try and get back to you. But thank you so much for your interest in this session. Such an important area of work. And I can't think of anything more important, really. And great that to hear how you're already embedding children's rights in your work and how you're thinking about moving that forward in the future. So thank you so much for coming along and taking part in the Winter Learning Festival for CLD. We hope you'll enjoy other sessions as well. And it's been lovely to meet you all. And big thanks to Julie for sharing all that she knows this morning. It's been great. So thank you, Julie. And I'll stop recording now. So.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks everyone for coming along and bearing with the